It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3, First up, 10 observations.
Just took it and just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's First and 10. Number 1.
Sam Howell looks ridiculously good right now. The young quarterback is the second leading passer in the NFL based off yardage. He has got the 7th most touchdowns. Yeah, he does have the most sacks. Yeah, he does have the most interceptions. Yeah, he's middle of the pack in QBR and QB rating. Actually, bottom half of the league and 18th and 20th in those two statistics. But let's focus on the positive because it's really a trend line that we're looking at. And his trend lines are good. All of his major statistics, touchdowns more consistently happening, interceptions less consistently happening. Sacks have obviously come down the last couple of weeks, and that's in large part thanks to his own play. Talk more about that in just a moment. But there's a couple of things that stand out that I think are really special about Howell and that have him, in terms of trend lines, trending towards being the Commanders' franchise quarterback. And no, I'm not ready to say that he definitively is yet, not because I don't think he's playing well, but because we got 8 more games, and I'm just going to take the 8 more games. But right now, if I had to pick, yeah, I'd probably bet on Sam Howell being the guy for the next, hopefully, number of years here in DC. But the couple of things that I think you see both in a traits bucket and a growth bucket that I really, really like, that I will package into this number 1 that will title Sam Howell's growth, right? 1, the moment is never too big for him. And we've seen this time and time again. The moxie he shows, the ability to consistently make big-time throws, to not be scared of the moments. You know, I'll even say this. Like, there's a play late in that game where they probably should just run the football, and EB decides to call a pass play, and I don't think Sam makes the right read. Jahan Dotson is wide open over the middle of the field. He said throws one-on-one deep to Dyami Brown. And you want to know what? It's a one-on-one matchup with a guy he likes throwing to. I don't like that he likes throwing to him that much because Diami's inconsistency catching the ball is not ideal. But the fact that he's not scared to make the throw is something. Like, he's not just like, I'm going to eat it. I'm going to turtle. I'm going to check it down. I'm not even going to try here. Like, how we can work on situational awareness. We can work on reading it maybe a little bit better based off the time score situation. But at the end of the day, he saw a one-on-one matchup and he went for it in a big spot. This dude is not scared in a big moment, and I like that. I'd rather try to rein that in than have a guy that I'm going to have to ramp up and is not going to make the plays when I need them, because that trait is also what gets you the game-tying touchdown against Philadelphia to Jahan that sent it in overtime. That trait is what gets you all those third down conversions that yesterday. He just is here. And, like, he doesn't get flustered. The moment's never too big. He doesn't panic. He just plays it out. And he can continue to get better at how he plays it out, but he does play it out. And I appreciate the hell out of that. I think it's a very important, consistent, not just to become a serviceable quarterback in this league, but to become a really good one. I think it also extends to his leadership. And that's something that I think is starting to emerge in a major way. I will always go back with Sam to the Dallas game last year and his locker room speech post-game when Rivera was like, oh, wait, he's a leader. If only I had known that. He was under my nose the entire season. Whoopsie daisies. Whatever. But you see it this year, and you hear him at the podium yesterday saying the right things, but also he talked about, like, he's one of the guys that's been talking to Emmanuel Forbes a lot and keeping him going. Like, Sam is starting to emerge as a leader in that locker room, which is what you want from your quarterback, and I think it comes very naturally to him. You can't teach that. It can develop over time, and I think it's circumstantial sometimes. Like, I think Kirk probably became a better leader when he went to Minnesota because there was not the stench, if you will, of him being Robert's backup or the other guy or this contract talk. No, he went in and he was the man. And some of the leadership ability that he had was able to shine a little bit more. And you see how supportive his teammates are in Minnesota when he goes down and the comments coming out about his leadership skills there. I think Sam has a lot of that, but I think he's been empowered to use it here. And I think that could benefit him for the long run, not just in general, but very specifically in Washington. And then you have the growth trajectory part of it where he's learning to take the check down and let other guys do the work. He's starting to realize I don't have to do this all myself. That if I just quickly get the ball to Antonio Gibson or to Logan Thomas or to Terry or Jahan or Byron Pringle, that they can get the first down for me. I don't have to make the big throw and get the ball there in the air even when it's tough. And that is a big, big part of the progression. And I think he's also learning that if I do that faster, it gives them a better chance. So in order to be a good teammate, I don't need to make the play. I need to give them a chance to make that play. And he's really starting to understand what that means at the NFL level. And that's the kind of stuff that sometimes quarterbacks never learn. We are 10 games into the Sam Howell experience. That's it. 1 start last year, 9 this year. He's 5-5. QB record is, kind of whatever. It's very circumstantial. But that's better a QB record than most quarterbacks have had here, certainly since Cousins left, and basically since the early 90s. Like, I'd actually want to go look. And maybe, I'll text Anthony, remind me in the commercial break, to text Commanders PR and see if they have that stat handy. Best record for a Commanders quarterback in his first 10 starts. I bet you there's not one that's better than not many that are better than 5-5 over the last 30, 40 years of this franchise. This kid definitely has something. It could all come out from underneath him. I'm not putting that on him yet, that he's definitely the guy. But he's trending that direction. The trajectory is great. And they're also doing a better job as we move on in 1st and 10 of setting him up for success.
Number 2.
A key change the last few weeks, I noticed this when I was watching the game back this morning, more so than I even did yesterday, is they are letting Sam have more command at the line of scrimmage, and I think he is getting them out of bad looks. Obviously, there is the offensive line that is playing a little bit better in certain spots, especially at the center spot, and I think even the mental stuff at the center spot is better in terms of getting the protection set and all that kind of stuff than a physical upgrade. Because Tyler Larson has at times struggled with stunts, and Chris Paul has struggled with certain things. But they're big enough, strong enough, and Sam's also helping them, which we'll get to in number 3. But the big thing is, like, sometimes it's not the offensive line's fault. It's really the play call's fault. And unless your quarterback can get you out of the play call, it's not a good time for anybody. You're just asking yourself to fail. And there are a lot more times if you watch him, he's moving people around. He's, checking, tap his helmet for this thing or, rub his arm for that thing. Like the audibles and some of the hand signals and whether those are protection changes, straight up play call changes, putting a guy in motion, changing a split, like whatever he's got to do at the line of scrimmage, it seems like he has a lot more freedom, which is something he's earned from Eric Bieniemy or something that EB decided, hey, like, I either give this to him and he sinks, or I give it to him and he swims, but we're sinking right now. So if I give it to him and he sinks, then what the hell is the difference? And I think that sometimes the best way to help a young quarterback isn't to strip it back. Sometimes you overstrip back an offense and you don't actually give him the tools to succeed. And I think they've done a better job the last 2 weeks specifically against Philadelphia, against New England, after that disaster of a Giants game, of giving him the tools. And in fact, I think it actually started on some level in the second half of the Giants game. You saw him starting to point out some of the protections and stuff a little bit more in that second half, where they cut the sack number way down. Unfortunately, just couldn't convert anything and ultimately score more than the 7 points they did. But you started to see a little bit of the process being better. And I think that freedom to empower Sam and Sam having the ability to change things up at the line of scrimmage has been very beneficial because it sets you up schematically. You don't lose with the pen before the ball is snapped. And I think that has been big the last couple of weeks. And the other big thing that I think Sam related that should be mentioned.
Number 3.
The pocket movement from Howell the last 2 weeks was basically non-existent. That he showed was basically non-existent in the first whatever number of weeks. Weeks 1 through 7, I guess. Weeks 8 and 9, he's had it. Weeks 1 through 7, like, he was a statue back there. And he still sometimes gets back there and his footwork isn't great, where he'll like stand back there and kind of look like he's leaning back. And you're like, that's not what other quarterbacks do. Like, why is your base not underneath you? Why are you not on your toes a little bit more? Like, what's going on there? but he's getting better at it. And he's starting to just subtly slide in the pocket. And instead of guessing that there's going to be pressure because his clock has gone off and vacating empty pockets, he's starting to really feel pressure. And when you feel pressure, you know that sometimes you don't need to just run away. You just need to move a little bit. And that extra 0.3 seconds that you buy by sliding a little bit to your left not only could buy you the time to not get sacked, but could open up a throwing window where you deliver a good ball and all of a sudden you go from a sack to a big time completion. And you've seen that the last 2 weeks. That is probably the biggest thing that I would like to see more of from him to feel great about him moving forward is, can you continue to move and manipulate within the pocket to create yourself more time and space to get off more of the stuff you do well, which is delivering good footballs. Sam Howell right now looks excellent. He's got a much tougher test this week in Seattle, a good defense, a game flow situation that is probably not going to be nearly as kind because offensively Seattle's way better than New England. But what he did yesterday was a test that he had not passed yet. It's one against Buffalo, New York, that he had failed. A complex defense that does a lot of stuff, and he pretty much picked it apart. That could have very easily and frankly should have probably been a blowout.
Number 4.
It is hard to remember how thoroughly dominant the Commanders were in this game before the Brian Robinson fumble until you walk it back or you watch it back or you really think back to that moment. But they owned that game. And then the fumble changed everything. Like, they were rolling. Robinson, even on that play, it was like a second effort type of situation, which is where the Commanders have had a number of fumbles this year. Guys trying to do too much. Just protect the ball, go down, man. Eventually, you just got to know when discretion is the better part of valor. And unfortunately, that did not happen for B-Rob in that particular situation. Fumble, Patriots score, and it goes from 10-0 to 10-7. They're able ultimately to go up 14-10 at half. But if that doesn't happen, let's say even they punt on that drive, like, I don't think New England's scoring a touchdown in the first half. And, even if you're 10-3 at halftime or whatever, that game is bad news bears for New England. Maybe they do. Maybe they get the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown as is. But if you don't get the first one, maybe you're a little more inclined to throw a little bit. And does Mac Jones throw a couple more picks or whatever it may be? But the Commanders really came out and dominated that game. And it just shows you the importance of those types of plays. You cannot give teams chances like that and expect to win in this league unless you are playing the worst teams in the league, which the Patriots are every bit of this season. But you do that against a Seattle, you do that against every team left on the schedule basically that's not the Giants, then, and Lord knows that this team's luck with the Giants is horrendous, heinous, and every other word that's bad. But you do that against basically every other team in the league, and especially the good ones that are left on their schedule, and you're not winning a lot of football games. So they've got to, and Ron said this in the post-game locker room. He's like, hey, defense played well, but we can't give up big plays like that. We can't give up a 64-yard run where there's mistakes at all three levels. We can't give up touchdowns, or we can't give up a fumble, but especially in our own red zone. That's just the formula for disaster. And Sam, obviously, the interception, he throws away points. That's just a crazy ball. I think I finally know what happened with it. I want to watch the tape one more time, and I haven't seen all 22 of it yet. But I'm watching some of the replays. I think he thought Logan Thomas was going to break late one way and he broke the other, and so the ball went to no one in particular except for Kyle Duggar. But point is, those types of plays cost you games. Commanders get away with it. Don't count on that for the rest of the season. All right, moving forward.
Number 5.
The draft class strikes back. Emmanuel Forbes was awesome yesterday. Quan Martin, game-sealing interception. Andre Jones makes a play or two. KJ Henry should have had a play. That was one of the worst calls we've ever seen. We'll get to it. But it's great to see these guys contribute. And look, again, is this going to be enough to save Rivera and the Marty's jobs and everybody when you've had an entire season where they've basically been non-factors, where Chris Rodriguez has been the only one that's kind of impacted the team in a positive way? C-Rod's been awesome. He's impacted the team in a very positive way, but no one else has. In fact, some of your guys have been involved in some of your worst plays of the season. But it was great to see those guys get out there, get a little bit of confidence, show some of their abilities. They are rookies. They are going to make mistakes. They are going to get beat sometimes. But Forbes yesterday, it's like New England was like, oh, no, we know what we're going to do. We're going to attack Emmanuel Forbes because that's what other teams do. And, they don't have A.J. Brown. Turns out it's not quite as easy. And maybe there was a little bit of credence to what Forbes said last week, where he was like, look, I was in good position and I got to make a play. And then, by the way, he pushed off. I think Forbes' confidence is back. I'm excited to see what he can do moving forward. He's not afraid, but it was great to see finally the draft class make an impact at the halfway point of the season. Although, nothing on them, but on the people who selected them and put them in those positions. Better late than never.
Number 6.
The KJ Henry call is legitimately one of the worst calls I've ever seen. There's kind of a bucket of worst calls I've ever seen. I don't even remember the other ones. But this one feels like one I might remember for a while. When the league sends around tape of like, hey, this is how you tackle a quarterback, this could have been the tape to me. Like he doesn't land on top of him like the referee said. Like he rolls off of him. There's other contact from other players that affects it a little bit. But like he doesn't land with his weight on him. He doesn't gratuitously, there's no gratuitous violence. Like he just form tackles him. I don't know what the hell at some point as a league, you have to say, hey, look, this is a violent sport. We're trying to take out the unnecessary violence. However, there's no violence here. He's just like, this is pretty easy, like sling a guy to the ground and realize that, Mac Jones is what? Well over 6 feet tall, well over 220. Like what? I'm even going to look this up. Mac Jones height, weight. I'm going to guess like 6'3", 215. That's not easy to bring down. You have to use some force. So stupid. I don't need to spend extra time on this. But the NFL has had some pretty embarrassing officiating recently. I know it's hard. That's bad. By the way, they also follow it up with a pretty garden variety missed call. Emmanuel Forbes, that should have been an interception, and the reason it wasn't is because there's offensive pass interference. You can't be like, oh, good job by the wide receiver becoming the defensive back and breaking it up there by committing an egregious pass interference call. If it's pass interference one way, it's pass interference the other. That's how that should work. That should have been a bigger play for Emmanuel Forbes drawing an OPI. Instead,
Number 7.
Eric Bieniemy did a really good job replacing Curtis Samuel yesterday. Needed multiple people to do it, but Byron Pringle, super involved, and it shows you why he made the team. They trust him. He runs good routes. He finds ways to get open in big situations. Excellent pickup by them this offseason. He did a really good job in extended snaps yesterday. And then they used Antonio Gibson more in the screen game. I hope that's something that continues even when Curtis is back. You get him the ball in space. You see him pick up. Again, it's not like you need 30 and 40 and 50-yard gains, but an 8-yard play on 3rd and 6 or 2nd and 5 is a first down. That's great. And Antonio Gibson's capable of doing that on a regular basis. Good job mixing and matching personnel. Crowder, was involved a little bit. Dotson's playing out of the slot some. They just did a really good job of replacing Curtis yesterday.
Number 8.
I think Alex Arma could have won them a game or two earlier this year. And it's not so much Arma himself, but it's what he does for the offense. Arma, the fullback / tight end that they had on the practice squad. We all thought he was going to make the team coming out of camp, and they did some funky stuff with tight ends, and ultimately he winds up on the practice squad. And I think they just should have kept him because the stuff they do out of I formation has fixed their short yardage problem. They can reliably get a couple yards. He is a fantastic blocker, whether he's lined up as a fullback or as a tight end, because he does some of both. John Bates is a good blocking tight end. I think Arma is better. And then they've got some effective play action out of that I formation stuff, whether it's the straight I or the offset I. They've had some really nice pickups off of that. And for a team that struggled in short yardage earlier in the season, this seems to have solved it. And sometimes that's the kind of stuff that costs you games. So I kind of wonder where they would be if they had, from both a personnel and also a mentality like we have a fullback and we can smash you standpoint, where they'd be if they had kept Arma up the entire year.
Number 9.
rewatching the game, thing that's important to point out, that interception by Sam Howell is dreadful, but it also doesn't happen if one of the 2 plays that happens in the 3 before it, so there's 3 plays that happen before the interception, the first 2 of them could have been touchdowns. First one, Bieniemy Brown. Right through his hands. I don't know what to say. Bieniemy's got to catch the ball. Yeah. Next play, the Patriots send a bunch of pressure. John Bates is screaming open over the middle of the field, wide open for a touchdown. Sam's got to throw it off his back foot, and he overthrows him. If that's on target and Bates can come down with it, that's a touchdown. You don't have to worry about the interception. Next play is a completion of Byron Pringle for a first down, and then Sam loses his absolute mind and throws the ball right to Kyle Duggar. But it just shows you, like, you don't convert on one opportunity, it leads to something bad happening elsewhere. Please convert on your opportunities. You're going to have to if you want to win more games this season against teams that are better than the Patriots. And then last but not least,
number 10.
When this team, when things get the noisiest around this team, I think that's when they played their best under Rivera, which is an admirable trait for Ron and the team, but is also incredibly frustrating. All the noise about Sweat and Young and the trades and everything, and oh my God, they got to go to New England, and people were kind of like, they might get their butts kicked because Belichick demolishes young quarterbacks, and they come out and they play a pretty freaking good football game that the score is closer than I think the performance was. But at the end of the day, you're on the road and you go beat Bill Belichick in New England. That's a good win. But how do you handle success? What do you do now? Can you keep it going? And John Allen, after the game in the post-game locker room, said, I want you guys to realize how good we can be. We haven't played a complete game yet. What I think you're underselling there, if you're John, is the best teams do that kind of stuff with consistency. This team isn't consistent. If they can find consistency over the final 8 games, they can make a run. And who knows, they're a dangerous, dangerous team. I would not want to play this team in the playoffs because if they do play a complete game, they can go toe-to-toe with anybody. They have a lot of talent, and they've got some good schematic, options. But at the end of the day, that's not who they are because they don't have that consistency. So how do they handle success? Can they go to Seattle and go toe-to-toe with a good Seahawks team? We will find out coming up on Sunday. That is First and 10. First segment, 10 observations right off the top of the show each and every Monday. Victory or misery Mondays. Thankfully, this one a victory Monday here on The Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.